You are listening to the Amplifying Leadership Podcast, where we explore what great leadership really looks like through real stories, actionable takeaways, and expert conversations. I am Tara Lehman, founder and CEO of Amplifying Leadership, here to help you lead with intention and influence. Don't forget to join us on Thursday for Tip Thursday with Tara as well. For today, thanks for tuning in to today's guest episode. Today, I am welcoming Nick Jonsson, a global thought leader on executive loneliness, international bestselling author, and TEDx speaker. Welcome to Amplifying Leadership.
Thank you so much, Tara. It's great to be here.
And it's great to have you on, and I would like everybody to get to know you a little bit. So why don't we start with, tell us a little bit about where you come from, your leadership story.
Yeah, born in Sweden, working class family, started as a construction painter. In my 20s, early 20s, I had a motorcycle accident, got a neck injury, and I was told by doctors that I needed to stop working with my body. So with that, I had to go back to school, and that I did in Australia. So I moved to Australia in the late 90s, studied there. And then I haven't really moved back to Europe since. I have built a career for myself in Asia. I've worked my way up the corporate ladder and left then the corporate world a decade ago, and now focusing on coaching, training, speaking, psychological safety. I'm also a psychotherapist and a counselor.
I love that you bring up psychological safety, because it's something that a lot of people miss when they think health and safety, that's for sure. So
yeah, it's very trendy now, Tara. There's more and more leaders who are keen on learning more about team psychological safety. Yes.
Excellent. And that is not our topic today, but something maybe we should come back to another time with. It's a great topic. Today, though, we're going to talk about connection. So because we have a global audience, can you let us know how you define that?
Yeah, so when it comes to connection, let me start by saying perhaps what it's not, because it used to be a time in my life when I didn't have connection. I didn't have connection with myself. I didn't have connection with other people. I could be surrounded by friends and family and still not feeling that connection. So I've been on that side, perhaps being born, as a socially distant, introverted Swede. So I learned it the hard way, therefore, what is connection. And it was really then once I found myself, and when I could be authentic and comfortable with myself, then I could be that around others as well. So it was about taking off that mask I was wearing, trying to please people and trying to fit in always, as opposed to being myself. So with that, I believe connection really is when we can be ourselves and we can truly speak honestly, and not about trying to impress other people and just to fit in. So that's at least how I look at connection.
And you're right about the authenticity. We really need to be ourselves, because putting on a mask, it doesn't always help anybody, and we can't share stories that could be helpful either, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so easy to do that, especially in the workplace where it's getting perhaps more and more competitive as well.
Absolutely true. So let's talk about the world and competitiveness and just change, because I mean, that is the world's middle name these days. Change is always happening. Are there benefits to having connection as a skill, as a leader or business owner, when our world is changing so much?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we have to remember that we are social animals or social beings, and for that, connection is a big part of our health. And there is this wave now talking about social health. We understand that physical health is important. There's been also the last decade has been about mental health, but more and more now we talk about social health. And what is social health? Well, it is to have a healthy connection with the people around us. And for those who are spending time at work, that means having a healthy connection with a few people at work and also outside of work, then perhaps with others who we can talk to and vent to, sharing what we are going through in our life. So that is what connection makes. And for high achievers, perhaps anxious overachievers like myself, I didn't have a connection, and I tried to deal with most of the things by myself, and it's very, very painful.
It absolutely can be. I mean, we want to be able to almost bounce ideas off of other people or share what's bothering us to get it off our chest. So I can absolutely appreciate that connection. And you bring up a little bit about collaboration as well, because that's really important, and connection can absolutely drive that collaboration in a workplace. As a leader, how can I connect and bring collaboration to my business or my team? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, for that, it's a bit of overlap here with team psychological safety in that regard. It is about being vulnerable, admitting when we make mistakes, showing that we are human. And because once we are vulnerable and we demonstrate that we don't have all the answers, then we are opening ourselves up for actually getting that connection, getting that support. And I think we as leaders, leaders of a company, leaders of a family, or leaders of a community, need to demonstrate that and be setting the scene by being vulnerable ourselves and asking for help. Then everyone else will do that, and that's how collaboration flourish.
And so, how does connection help us with that? Like, are we connecting to certain people? Do we connect in certain ways? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I like the fact that we talk about connection, and that doesn't mean that we need to come out into our office and scream out all our life
Yeah.
challenges. That's an unattractive oversharing, right? With
Hmm.
connection means that you find your safe spaces. We don't perhaps click with everyone, but we click with some people. So I always encourage people think about your workplace. Are there 2 or 3 people who you can trust? Are there 2 or 3 people that you feel that you can be a bit vulnerable with and share what
Hmm.
you are going through? And therefore you can deepen those relationships, and with that you build a stronger connection with them. And then do likewise outside of work. I say try to connect with ex peers, ex colleagues, others perhaps you worked with in the past who know about you, who know about your working style, who knows your industry, so that you also can have those conversations externally. Because it might be that you're going through something internally that you feel you don't want to disclose to your colleagues. So therefore, having those safe spaces externally is what really matters.
And I think too, those external connections as well. I mean, if we look at it on the career side of things, really important to keep some of those old connections. I mean, what if you don't align with a new place that you're working at, or the leadership values you don't align with all of a sudden? I mean, we have those connections as well, don't we, for like building that for later?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, if anywhere new jobs are coming from, it tend to be from those connections, right? Those are the people who
Mhm.
know you. So nurturing them and keeping them alive is very important. Perhaps certainly now when the whole world is going through more layoffs and more disruptions than ever
Oh,
before.
is it ever? So let's do the flip side of this. We know the benefits that can be quite large. Are there any downfalls of either not being connected or connecting to the wrong people? Or, and how does that affect us as a leader?
Yeah, so I say that we also can, divorce our friends or divorce our connections or
Mm,
remove ourselves from connections, not just in a marriage, but if we have some relationships and when we think about that person, when we are heading to see that person, and we just have that kind of gut feeling that something is off. And if that feeling is back every time when we go and see them, and perhaps they are just not on our wavelength, perhaps they're just negative, perhaps they are talking about other people around the back, and we just feel that they are not
mm,
really adding any value to my life, then we can politely remove ourselves. It doesn't mean that we have to be rude to this person. It's about important keeping our side of the street clean. But
mhm.
we don't have to wish them bad just because we distract or remove ourselves from their circle, because we only have time and energy for so many people. So it's very, very important that we surround ourselves with people who are supportive. And with that, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't challenge us. We should also have some difficult conversations with those people, but
Mhm.
at least they should want someone who mean well for us and someone who we feel naturally connected to.
Now, I'm thinking there's people out there probably wanting to ask you this question. So let's say we can't remove, let's say you and I work together and you and I don't get along, but we're peers. You can't fire me or discipline me or anything. But so we have to be collaborative in some way. How do we handle that? We can't remove that connection, right? So how do we manage that?
Yeah, so in that case, it's about accepting that's the case, and that will always be the case. There might even be that we have family members or relatives or people in around us
Mhm.
that we just have to get along with, and all we
Yeah.
can do is keep reminding ourselves and just keep our side of the street clean, and just think about what's the next thing I can do to do things right. We don't want to get into any conflict or voicing any complaints or
Mhm.
anything like that. Just keep focusing on doing what you're doing, and accept, right? It's about accepting the things we cannot change, right? And in this
Yeah.
case, then get your positive energy elsewhere.
And I always say you can only change one person, and that one person is yourself. You can't change, you can influence, but you can't change. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're spot on there, Tara. And you might be surprised if we are changing ourselves. And let's say that there's been an argument or there's something perhaps there between you and that person. Maybe there's some tension. But if you are then making amends for that, you own whatever you done, you own your part and you're making those amends and perhaps apologize, then you've done everything you can. Then you've done
Hmm.
your cleaning of your side of the street. And surprise, surprise, maybe the other person also take the opportunity to also make amends back, and maybe the relationship therefore can be saved as well.
Yes, we can influence and we can lead by example and hope that others will follow, right? Absolutely. I want to turn this around a little bit. We're talking about making connections, and for some people, it's easy. Some people, it's a natural thing. They love it. And then there's those people who maybe are more introverted. Maybe they're brand new, they're younger, and they're just new into a leadership role, and they have this team. And how, what are those strategies to help people who are either introverted or new in making the connections and making sure they're making the right ones? So maybe that's a two-part question for you.
Yeah, and I can again turn to how I did it before, and perhaps it wasn't the right way. I used to be part of the chambers of commerce, but the events I went to was always the drinking events, and it involved too much alcohol, and sometimes it was free flow alcohol, and it was not a healthy lifestyle for me to go out and do it around that. But why did I seek those events? Well, again, I'm introverted. I didn't feel so comfortable. I didn't have the confidence in myself to go out in all these big networking events and so on. And it's quite a few people who feel like that. And so what have I done these days then? And I go back to your original question almost there,
Mm-hmm.
about connection, authenticity. It's about them thinking about, okay, what are the tribes where I can be myself? And in my case, I've done that deeper work for myself. So I, for example, I like swimming, cycling, running. So I joined swim academies, I joined running clubs, cycling
Mm-hmm.
clubs. And in many cities around the world, when I'm there, I try to join these groups where I can really feel by my like being myself. And then there's networking around that. You go for a bike ride and then you have a coffee after, and you have those hobbies in common. So if someone is listening, ask yourself, do I like fishing? Is it bowling? Is there a charity? Is it a community that I can support?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps in my neighborhood. And then when you're doing something meaningful and being of service, and you have other people there, then that to me is the best form of networking. Then we don't have to think so much or be pretentious, or in the worst cases I
Mm-hmm.
did even have to drink alcohol to go and network, because what's the point of that? You just harming yourself, and it's sort of
Mm-hmm.
shallow networking, if anything.
Yeah, and I think, doing something that you like makes conversations a lot more natural, right? Because you can talk about the swimming or the cycling or whatever it is. That's good. What would you say to, and I'm sure you and I have both had these types of clients, those people who say, I'm too busy to do any type of in-person networking. What do you say for connecting at that point?
Yeah, and I think everyone is too busy, but we have to just remember then, if social health is important and connection is important, it is for our well-being, that we just have to think about how can I combine it, and perhaps it goes back to sport. If you also say that I need to do 30 minutes of exercise per day, if that's
Mm,
going for a walk, then why not do that walk with your friend, or go for a hike, or do something together, so that you actually getting then the physical health, the social health combined, and then also you're getting your mental health. So I think we just have
mhm.
to be quite effective and planning. We live in our lives being so busy, we have to be quite strategic and plan for it.
So I have a question because a lot of times leaders, business owners, they go to LinkedIn to connect, which is great. It's a great resource. Um, for those people who are trying to make those types of connections, do you have any strategies or tips for them so that they are connecting maybe with the right people if they're doing it wherever they're doing it, LinkedIn or some other online resource that they might be using? Is there a strategy to share around making those right connections?
Yeah, so I believe LinkedIn is a great way to connect, but then I don't do much networking after that. But I invite people in my network to in-person event or virtual events. So
Hmm.
last week I invited my network to an event where I gave a talk about legacy and purpose. And for those who were interested in that, they could join. And there was more than 400 signups. I didn't have
Oh,
that
wow.
many joining, but I sent out a private message to those who didn't join if they want to catch up for a personal one-on-one. So that's one way.
Mhm.
And if I'm traveling to one city overseas, I might say, well, I'm going to be, let's say, in Los Angeles, and I might have 150 connections there. Then I can send a message to them and say, by the way, I'm staying at this hotel. I'm going to spend half a day there. If you want to drop by for a coffee,
Mhm.
please reach out. And once I've done that a few times, there will be people, even if it's 2 or 3 people who come over, that's fantastic. Then you're meeting some people in person as well.
And I love that. And it's something that I do with previous, workplaces as well. I might say, hey, I'm going to be in whatever town I want to meet up for a coffee. And it actually keeps that connection going long after they've left or you've left or whatever. So I love that idea as well. Or just even having an online coffee chat. If you're in Sweden, I'm in Canada, why not have the online coffee chat and at least connect in a way that's not just a message, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is that combination. Then we can, move over to the platform we prefer. May that be WhatsApp or Messenger or whatever
Mhm.
channel, right? But LinkedIn is a good way to reach out and then filter and invite. And I also use sometimes different platforms where you can sell tickets to events, and that can be a nice way,
Mhm.
even with a low fee. At
Mhm.
least it covers the bills and for some food and beverages. So I believe, yeah, online networking should be complemented with in person if we can.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right, now I want to talk about a different type of connection. And this is I'm a brand new leader. I don't know anything about my team. I'm brand new to it. How do I connect with my team so that I can have a team that can thrive over time?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts of this. One is also a bit of personal connection, to not be so transactional, but actually be a bit curious in your team, try to find out something about the family and so on. And that is nicely done over a coffee or a lunch one-on-one with them if we have time to be a bit curious to establish that one-on-one connection. But then when it comes to the professional, I believe in having clear conversations and asking them what is it that they want to achieve, clear open coaching conversations, and asking them if they're reporting to you, then find out how you can be a best leader, what they expect from you, and also ask them some questions. Where do they need help? How would they like you to manage them? And just ask a lot of open questions, so that again, uh, rather than being so directive, when we ask coaching open questions, then we're building deeper connections.
I 100% agree with that. The open questions, or we call them coaching conversations or one-on-one conversations, where there's a lot of open questions, can be very, very beneficial. So basically, open questions are not answering yes or no. We're trying to gather information, and that could be on, like you mentioned, just getting to know them personally, but could also be on, we're trying to work through a challenge we have at work, right? And those types of questions can be great for that as well. So glad you brought that up, because I think that's a key piece. And some people call them coaching conversations, other people call them open conversations, those types of things. How can we rebuild if we have a fragmented, something happened between us and now we're trying to rebuild our connection? The past is the past, but we have to rebuild it. And this could be with a peer at work, it could be with a team member. Maybe it's your business owner to another business owner and something happened. How do we rebuild a connection that has been lost or broken?
Yeah, for a start, there's no guarantee that it can be done. So I think we have to
Mhm.
accept that for a start. All we can do is to try our best to make amends and apologize for our side of the what have happened, and never go into what they have done with that, because then it may be just going to get tense. So I think first we just clean up our side, and the best is to leave it with the other person. They might not be ready to forgive. They might not be ready to move on. It might still be, quite tense. Maybe they still have a lot of emotions and feelings. But if we clean up our side of the street, then what I found is that it's only a matter of time in most cases before the other person come back and actually we are ready to
Mhm.
move forward again. So we got to swallow our ego here and try to
Yes.
leave that alone.
Yeah, put the past in the past, right? And see what you can do. Absolutely. I'm wondering if there is anything that would help. or what you feel about connections and helping us in the future as leaders or as business owners, because this world is crazy. This world is fragmented. This world is ever changing. How do you feel that this type, if we do all of these things, is going to help our business or our leadership for the future?
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that most human beings, if not all, we all have our own ways of coping. We have healthy coping mechanisms and we have perhaps the unhealthy coping mechanisms. And these can be bad habits. And if we don't look after them, if we don't work on them, they can easily turn into addictions, which was the case when I went through some challenges at work and I went through the divorce. I started to consume too much alcohol. That was my go-to to deal with issues during that time. And yes, it tipped over to an addiction and I had to seek professional help for that. And fortunately, it worked and I got out of that problem. For someone else, it might be, it could be drugs, gambling, gaming, online shopping, all of these that perhaps it's a bad habit. We do it too much. But once life goes against us and it can be a loss of a job or loss of a family member or something tragic will happen because that's life, then that bad habit, if we don't own it, if we haven't worked on it, we don't have a support network who are aware what we're working on and what our challenges are, then it's easy that perhaps that habit turns into addiction. And that's what I see time and time. And that is what I'm passionate about these days now, to have those deeper conversations, to try to grab these bad habits before they flip over to an addiction.
And your connections will see some of that too. If they, if you have really strong connections, they might see that even if they are a peer, and be able to help you through resources or whatever else that might look like as well, right? So those types of connections can be very helpful in those cases.
Absolutely. And it's about reducing the stigma in having these conversations. There's still so much stigma about mental health, loneliness, and broken connections. So it's about leading by example and admitting that we're all human. We all can go through phases of challenges, and then sharing that we also were there and sharing how we went through it. Then again, we are deepening connections with, because people will look at us as human and they will feel comfortable sharing with us what they are going through.
And it's connection through story, really, isn't it? Something that they can potentially relate to. Everybody's going to have some death in their family at some point, right? So there's a way that we can connect with people, regardless if it's a leader with their peers or their team or whatever, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I want to let you summarize with maybe providing us with, a strategy or a big tip that we haven't covered yet for our audience on connection today. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think the connection can be broken if we are not in a good space. So I think the first is to have the awareness and the honesty if there's something that is, in the way there. And I touched on that, right? If there can be bad habits or so on, because we might spend so much energy to defend that and fall into that bad habit. So the first message would be, try to do an honest look at yourself and have a conversation with someone you can trust and see how you can move forward and get some professional help. And I also, when I went through my divorce and challenges, I got separated from my son and I felt like I was a lousy dad. And as soon as I was thinking of my son, I just felt so sick in my gut. I could even feel it, that I'm letting down him. And I had so much self-criticism, and that voice inside me was terrible. It was really, really awful. But I remember then writing down and journaling on it and just asking, how can I move forward here? Who can help me? And I reached out to child psychologists, specialists, and I got the help that I needed. Who really, really helped me to make a beautiful and deep connection with my son. But I needed help for such a thing. And yes, there's stigma there, just to admit that I'm a lousy dad. But that was the turning point. And once I owned that, I could turn it around.
Stigma is a big problem out there, and our psychological and mental health is just as important as our physical. And we need to start talking about it a lot more. And I think that is a great way to encourage our audience today to think about that and how they can make those connections to help maybe others who might be going through whatever we're going through, whether it be business or personal. There's always somebody who's probably gone through it. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your vulnerable stories with us today. I'm sure it's going to help somebody listening. If somebody in our audience wanted to connect with you, how would they do that? What's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, so I have a website that is quite active with a lot of work that I do and so on, and it's nickjonsson.com. That's NICKJONSSON. Otherwise, I'm quite active on LinkedIn as well. I can find Nick Jonsson there.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for sharing everything with us today, Nick.
Thank you so much, Tara, for having me.
And of course, a thank you to you, our listeners. We hope you gained some valuable insights and practical takeaways from today's conversation with Nick. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or share the podcast with others, as it is one of the best ways to support this podcast and help us and our guests like Nick reach more leaders with these meaningful stories, information, and tips. If you're looking to clarify leadership priorities, build strong teams, or empower those around you, I'm here to help. Explore our solutions, offers, and resources at amplifyingleadership.ca, because leadership is better when we do it together.